Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head back to Russia and we're going to stick to the Moscow area for this review. For this one we are going to go to Stamm Brewing and we're having a taste of their reFresh Citra today, which is a New England IPA coming in at 6.5% ABV. So this one I think should be really interesting. This is a brewery that I encountered at the Malmö Russian Beer Festival a couple of years ago, and I'm sure it was an imperial stout that I had from these guys that was aged in like Euro whiskey barrels or something, and it was absolutely beautiful. So I'm hoping that this New England IPA is very good. This is a brewery that has a really good reputation from what I gather, so looking forward to trying this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. Big thank you to my friend Hannah who was in Moscow and brought this beer back with me along with the other ones you've seen me review from Russia as well, and a shout out too to my friend Vasily who he helped me do a little bit of research on this brewery, because you know it's a bit difficult to research stuff in Russian when you don't really speak it very well. But yeah, really looking forward to this one, and as I say, I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Stamm Brewing. Very first time I tried one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Russian beers that I've reviewed for you. Hopefully I can add to that regularly over the next little while, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Stamm Brewing then. So Stamm Brewing are based in a little town called Krasnaya Pakhra, which is just off the Kaluga highway, and you can find it to the kind of southeast of the main city of Moscow. And this company was founded back in 2011 by Andrei Ivanov. So one of the odd things I found when I was researching this brewery is that it's impossible to find out what Andrei Ivanov did before he started a brewery. I actually messaged them and just asked, you know, I know your owner is Andrei, how did he get into brewing? How did his interest in beer start? And they just wrote back simply, hello, Andrei does not like to talk about himself, which I thought was kind of strange actually, but my friend Vasily told me that some Russians are just very private, so not sure what to make of that one. But I know the brewery was started by Andrei Ivanov, but I've got no idea how he actually got into craft beer and things like that. But the brewery itself is located in a little, it almost looks just like someone's house, to be honest with you. It's this little brown black building thing. They've got a brewery cat as well, but the brewery itself is equipped with a 1,000 litre brewing system, and it's got numerous fermentation tanks. All of that comes from Zip Brewing technology in Hungary, and they also have an on-site tap room as well, which sells their beers and other guest beers. You can buy their beers in bottles, cans, and I think you can buy little mini kegs and things like that as well. But as of September 2019, they've produced over 100 different types of beers. Andrei has also collaborated with Mikhail Gorovkov to actually create the 8 Barrels Brewing Company as well, which is dedicated to the creation of sour beers. And the brewery Doc and Dan, which is run by the American Daniel Madden, they were originally based in Stamm Brewing as well. They basically rented some fermentation tanks from them too, to start up their own brewery. So yeah, an interesting one this. It's a brewery that seems to have that seems to be very well respected in terms of the quality of their beer. Their brewer Oleg is supposed to be really quite talented as well. So one of the Russian breweries that are kind of very revered, if you like, but as I say, it was quite difficult to actually find information on these guys, and I found that a bit unusual, to be honest, because normally you'd think that brewers would want to kind of talk about the, you know, the brewery and you know how it all started and things like that. I found that very unusual, but hey ho, who knows. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about Stamm Brewing for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with everything that's going on lately. They also have a VK site as well, which is the kind of Russian equivalent of Facebook. You can check that out. I'll maybe put that in the description for you below too. And of course you can follow them. You can have a little look at the Rate Beer and Untappd pages, and that will give you a list of all the different beers that these guys have produced. So let's get on to the actual tasting of this beer then. So as you can see, kind of quite cool artwork on this. I have to admit, I do like these sort of mad graphic things that are coming on cans these days. This is pretty cool, you know, it's almost like the inside of a kaleidoscope or something like that. But yeah, it looks like a really, really nice beer. I think this is the date that this was canned on, the 3rd of July 2019, so still pretty fresh. reFresh Citra, New England IPA. They do have lots of different versions of this reFresh beer from what I gather too. So I think there was reFresh Mosaic and reFresh Galaxy and things like that too. So they do, I think they're probably using the same base and just changing the hop up a little bit. But yeah, I guess probably a single hot Citra New England IPA. This one 6.5%, which is kind of the same as the Zagovor ones that I had a little bit before. So yeah, let's get it out and get on with the tasting. This one is a ½ litre can. I'll just let you have a little look at the back of the can too. That is the Stamm Brewing Company's symbol there, and you'll see that on the building of the brewery if you do go and visit there. I do hope that I can go and visit it at some point in the future. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So yeah, a little bit of smoke on the opening, and we'll get it out and into the glass. As I say, it's very, very cool to be able to review some Russian beers for you, because I know from that festival that Malmö Brewing Company did that the quality of Russian beer is really good. But because, you know, the Russian government and the EU don't get on all that well, it's a bit of a shame. There's no trade deals with Russia, so we don't get Russian beers in Europe very often, which is a bit of a shame. And the Russians, you know, all the Russians I've encountered have been very, very nice people, so I think it's just politicians being politicians as always. So yeah, no, it would be cool to go to Russia, as I say, and have a look at some of these breweries. It'd be awesome to see more Russian breweries getting their beers over here into Europe. But yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely bright yellow colour. This one very, very hazy actually, but not the haziest of New England IPAs that you're going to come across. I have seen ones that are even thicker than this, but it is getting up to that level, has a good level of haze. If I stick my fingers behind the glass, you can see the amount of haze on this. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones heading up towards the bottom of the head there, and the head incidentally has just faded away to be a very, very thin kind of foamy layer. It was a perfect white head that was on this, but yeah, in terms of appearance, nothing overly surprising about this beer when you consider that it is a New England IPA. So yeah, let's take a closer look at that aroma then and just see how we get on. Oh yeah, that smells pretty good. I mean, it comes across as a very straight up aroma. And the thing, as I say, the Zagovor one that you've seen me review already, the thing that really surprised me about that was that it packed all the flavour, but it was really light and kind of an easy drinking, to be honest with you. And I'm wondering if this one is going to be the same as that. But yeah, that smells absolutely lovely. So yeah, straight away with this beer, you're going to notice you can pick out the nice pale malty quality there forming the malt base. There's a little bit of biscuity sweetness in there also, and you've got some of that nice oaty creaminess that you would expect of a New England IPA. To me, the malt base in this one really leans more towards that oaty creaminess. It comes across as very clean and also very smooth, if you like, but as I say, a little touch of a biscuity sweetness in there too. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things then, that's the malt base covered. On the hoppy side of things, nice little bit of a grassy quality there. There is a wee touch of earthiness coming out of this one, which is quite interesting. Definitely a little bit of earthiness to this beer. You've also got a nice little bit of floral aromaticity, but mainly the green side of the hops in this beer are leaning towards the grassy side of things, which I think suits it, and it suits the kind of the vibe that you're getting from this beer. Light and grassy, nice and creamy and oaty. And on the fruity side of the things, again, it's kind of what you would expect from Citra. It's got a lovely sort of smooth mango quality to it. Maybe a little bit of a kind of peachy sharpness as well, to be honest with you. Maybe even a little bit of apricot now that I think about it. But you've also got these kind of complexities that you can get from Citra too. And for me, this one has a little bit of a... It definitely has some of those lychee kind of gooseberry notes that you can get out of it, but it does have a nice kind of juicy lime note as well. But the thing that's interesting for me about this one, as I say, I've had many beers with Citra in it, but sometimes with Citra you can get quite a bit of sharpness to it, and it's got a sort of peachy, lemony sharpness coming out of it, this beer, which is really quite interesting, I have to say. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you actually taste it. But we're going to have a look at this one now and just see how we get on. So this one is the reFresh Citra, a New England IPA coming in at 6.5% from Stamm Brewing from Krasnaya Pakhra, just to the southwest, sorry, of Moscow City. I think I actually said southeast earlier in the video, but and a brewery that is very kind of highly regarded in Russia. So let's get stuck into this one. Slanje, skol, na zdravie. Yeah, it's pretty nice, that. It's quite, again, when I think about this one and the Jaguar beers that I had before, it's really light and very very easy drinking. This is, you know, the approach that seems to be going on in Russian breweries to New England IPAs is a little bit different to what we're getting over here. I mean, they really take the drinkability of these beers to the max. Yeah, the first thing that's really striking me about this beer is just how clean it feels in the mouth. And I made the same comment about Jaguar as well, that these beers come across as being very, very, very clean in their mouthfeels and things like that. And they feel very light too, but they've got they really have the full whack of flavours that you would expect from the style, but they come out a bit more in the aftertaste. It's really quite unusual, actually, to have a beer that behaves like that. But thumbs up to Stamm Brewing for this one. I think they've done a really nice job with this IPA. And as I say, I really enjoyed the Euros barrel aged stout that I had from them too. But yeah, this is really quite a nice IPA, but you know, I'm not surprised. As I say, I know that the standard of Russian beer is pretty high, so I mean, it's really not surprising that I've got a brewery that are quite revered in Russia, and I've got another good New England IPA. So yeah, thank you to the guys at Dogma Bottle Shop as well. That was where Hannah went to pick up this beer, and they picked out what they thought some of the best beers were that I should be trying on the channel. So a big shout out to the guys at Dogma Bottle Shop in Moscow too. I'll put the link to their page in the description below. But let's try and break down this flavour a little bit then. So yeah, for me, this beer, in the malt base, in the middle of your palate, you're going to feel that nice pale malty quality. That just blankets the middle of your tongue. On top of that, the further you go into the aftertaste, you're going to notice there is a little bit of a wheaty quality, starts to push its way out of this beer. It definitely has a little bit of that kind of wheaty pungency the further you go into the aftertaste. Earlier on though, you're going to pick up the kind of oaty creaminess, and in the very centre of your palate, there's a little bit of a kind of biscuity quality there as well, which is nice. So the malt base, it's quite simple, but it really does the job. And the interesting thing about this beer, as I mentioned, is the fact that there's a bit, the flavour becomes a little bit more, how could you say, pungent the further into the aftertaste you go. So that's a really interesting thing to point out about this beer. So yeah, not much more else you can really say about the malt base, to be honest. On the back corners of the palate, there's a nice, there's a little teeny touch of earthiness there, but very quickly it evolves to be a lot more floral. There's a good bit of floral aromaticity along the side of this, along the side of your tongue here. It's really actually a little bit spicy at the back of the tongue, which is quite interesting, but that builds a good bridge between the slightly more pungent and wheaty flavours that you get in the aftertaste with this beer. Round the very front curve of the palate though, it evolves to be a little bit more grassy. As I said, in the aroma, this beer was more grassy, but in the flavour, it's definitely more more kind of floral and spicy, if you like. But yeah, in terms of the fruity side of the beer then, as I always say, you get that little oily bubble behind the front curve of your tongue where the fruity esters roll out of the beer that you're getting from the hops. And this one is, you know, just kind of classic Citra. If you go to the very back of that oily bubble, you get a bit of the kind of darker grapefruity, passion fruity notes out of it. But as you come further forward, it evolves to be more of a kind of juicy, mangoey quality. I do think that the peachy notes that I was picking out in the aroma don't really come out in the flavour, but as you move further forward, it becomes a little bit, in front of the mango-y flavours, it does become a little bit like apricot-y or pineapple-y. There's a little bit of that in there, and then behind the front curve of the tongue, you've got a little bit of a kind of lemon limey quality in there, and the further that you go into the aftertaste, that fruity flavour, it kind of evolves a little bit to be almost a little bit lychee and gooseberry like, to be honest. There's a lot of flavour to this beer. The thing that, as I say, that's very, very surprising about it is the mouthfeel, but then that kind of keeps in tone with what we had from the Jagovor Sadwave IPA that I reviewed for you in the last Russian video. So yeah, that's a really, really nice. It really is quite nice how this goes together. I really like this IPA, so thumbs up to Stamm Brewing there. As I say, mouthfeel is just very unusual for me with this style. So let's talk about that then. As I was saying earlier, this beer, it comes across very, very clean and very light. So I would describe this beer as being either at the top end of light-bodied or at bottom end of mid-bodied. It's somewhere kind of around that sort of level in terms of its mouthfeel. I would say that overall this beer, the carbonation is quite crisp in this one. It's got quite a wet mouthfeel to it rather than anything else. It's not really oily or as smooth as some of the ones that you're going to come across, but the water in this one I think really makes it feel very, very, very clean, to be honest with you. The malt base for this one for me is very smooth. You get a good little bit more of you do get a little bit of sweetness out of it, but mainly it's quite a smooth mouthfeel, this one. I really like the way the hops come out in this beer too. I think in terms of IBUs, we're only talking about 25 IBUs with this beer, to be honest. There's a nice juicy fruity quality to it there, and as I say, in the aftertaste, this is a beer where the flavour really gets a little bit more pungent compared to how it is in the beginning. But overall, a really nice, light, easy drinking IPA, this one. As I say, I wonder if this is going to be a recurring theme with the Russian New England IPAs. It really is more like it really is kind of more like a sort of, it really is just very light, summery and easy drinking, to be honest with you. So I wonder if that really is going to be a recurring theme with the Russian IPAs. And this is the cool thing, because you start to notice in countries, when you try beers from different countries, you start to notice little trends, to be honest. So maybe the Russians really value drinkability when it comes to the New England IPA style. But a lovely beer, this one. They have got some other IPAs, New England IPAs, that come across as very kind of revered, if you like, so hopefully I can review a few more of those for you at some point in the future. But as I say, Moscow is most definitely on my list of places to visit, and I'm sure I'll go to the Dogma tap room and get some more of these beers. But yeah, thumbs up to Stamm Beer for this one. Interesting to do this video. I really hope that I can review their Euro barrel-aged stout at some point, because I remember that from Malmö Brewing Company as being one of the best beers that I tried. So that's one that I definitely want to have a go at and sit down and review it for you here on the channel. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. The reFresh Citra from Stamm Brewing in just outside of Moscow in Russia. Really cool to be able to review some Russian beers for you. Thank you again to Hannah and Vasily for helping out with this video. And thank you again to the guys at Dogma Tap Room as well. I hope you've enjoyed this one. As always, do let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Stamm Brewing as well. And I'm sure I'll return to these guys at some point in the fairly near future. And you will see a couple of more Russian beer review videos coming up over the next few weeks as well. Thank you again for watching. Make sure you check out my social media, and make sure you check out some of these Stamm Brewing beers. Until the next time, Slàinte just now, and I'll catch you guys later. Slàinte, skål, cheers.